The Sig P365 X Macro. I have featured this gun frequently on TFBTV. Never done a full review of it for some reason, and I think it's about gosh darn time. Mainly, I ignored the 365 X Macro. Couple of reasons. The primary one, I like the P365 XL. What can I say? One of my favorite everyday carry pistols. The XL, a little bit shorter, about an ounce and a half lighter than this gun, and I shoot it as well, almost as well as the X Macro, while getting the same terminal performance because they've got the same barrel length. I actually talked about all of this in depth in a video. I'll try to remember to drop a card here, which I'll probably forget, but I do an in-depth comparison, a head-to-head of 4 different models of the P365. I tell you why I like the XL better than all the rest of them, and I still do. I call it the Goldilocks gun. The XL, barely bigger than the standard P365, call it the Micro. Barely heavier, but it's got a longer barrel for better velocity and terminal performance. It holds an extra 2 rounds while adding just a mere half-inch to the grip. Coincidentally, this makes the grip length of the XL perfect because a normal-sized guy like me can get a full grip on the XL while the Micro is a little too small. This translates to better control, meaning that I'm significantly more accurate with the XL than I am with the P365. We tested it out in that video. Yeah, look at that. It's terrible, actually. I mean, I wouldn't say terrible. 2 flyers and then boom, boom, then stacking them. That's everything in the 9 ring and 10 ring except for 1. You know, that's pretty effing good. I can shoot this accurately. I can shoot this quickly. Self-defend myself with speed and power. I really like this thing. Point is, in that video, I say, look, P365 XL, it's my favorite of the lineup as we sit here today. That hasn't changed, but son of a bitch, this is a video about the Macro, not the XL, and I'm sitting here raving about the XL. I'm going to shut up about the XL for now, and we're going to talk about the X Macro. So everything in the 10 ring, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 X's. That one's close. Okay, and that seemed pretty fast too. What do you think about that, Ryan? The X Macro is the logical conclusion of the Sig P365 family. The 365 wasn't the first micro-compact handgun. It was released in 2018, while the modest Kel-Tec P11 was released in 1995. Both guns, super small, super light, about 1 inch thick, about 4 inches tall, 10+1 rounds of 9mm, but unfortunately the Kel-Tec was a piece of shit. So, Sig is wildly successful with the P365. They stretch it out a little bit. They make it a little bit heavier, a little bit bigger. They add 2 rounds of capacity, and boom, you've got the XL. Fast forward to the X Macro, they stretch it out even further, blowing past the traditional 15-round mark associated with most compact 9mm handguns. They go straight to 17 rounds. In other words, the X Macro is a 17-round Sig P365 XL. But is it still a micro compact? Is it still concealable? Those are 2 different questions. I personally define micro compact pistols as handguns that are roughly 1 inch thick. I mean, I feel like if it's more than 1.1 inches thick, doesn't count. And if you don't believe me, try carrying a 1 inch thick Glock 43X, then a 1.2 inch thick Glock 19 and get back to me. A micro compact has to hold 10 or more rounds. The X Macro holds 17. Some people say the X Macro is not a micro compact. After all, I mean, it is in the name, right? It's called the Macro, not the Micro. But I would tend to agree. In my personal concealed carry nerd mind, for it to be considered a micro compact, I'm saying handgun, hard stop at 4.5 inches tall. The X Macro, 5.2 inches tall. Actually, 0.2 of an inch taller than a Glock 19, 1.1 inches thick. So it's toeing the line a little bit in the width dimension. Now, because of the astounding 17-round capacity of this gun, the X Macro is, again, 5.2 inches tall. Thus, by my definition, I have to agree with people that say the X Macro is not really a micro compact. It's a compact, but is it concealable? I have had boners that are harder, more difficult to conceal than this gun. This is a 1/10 of an inch slimmer than the Glock 19 while being the same height, roughly, and holding 2 additional rounds. The Glock 19 renowned as a jack-of-all-trades pistol because most people can readily conceal it, but it also performs about as well as a full-size duty gun. Essentially, Sig's taken the P365's micro-compact roots, applied them to what people would traditionally call a compact handgun, but it's actually a little bit slimmer and has a couple rounds more of 9mm capacity. You're talking about a slim and lightweight pistol in a compact form factor with full-size duty pistol capacity of 9mm. One area where the X Macro shines, hey, is the sighting system. The factory sights are the Sig X-ray day-night sights, which provide excellent visibility regardless of your lighting condition. Also, the slide optics ready, allowing for easy mounting of red dot sights. The mounting pattern is compatible with the Holosun 407K, 507K footprint, which means there's a ton of good optics mounting solutions. Sig would highly recommend an optic like this. This is a Romeo Zero with a little shield on it. Not a huge fan, actually, of the Romeo Zero. I would go with this guy right here, which is actually amazing. The Romeo X. Love this optic. But of course, you can also go with the 407K or the 507K from Holosun. Wonderful, enhanced accuracy, faster target acquisition. Mwah. Cheap as hell too. Grip texture, grip angle, everything about it. The undercut here on the X Macro, excellent. Just excellent. They nailed it. Really helps with recoil, comfy to shoot, especially when firing personal defense rounds like jacketed hollow points. The controls, great. The ergos now for the X Macro aren't as big of a step up from the XL as, say, the 365 to the XL. That's a huge difference. However, you get a little bit extra weight, you get a little bit extra grip, and that makes this gun more comfortable and more effective to shoot. Speaking of effective, I would call the trigger mushy but effective. It has to be the worst feeling, but yet most effective trigger ever devised. It's a paradox. It feels like hitting a wet telephone book with a sledgehammer, but for some reason, it's roughly 5-pound weight and its short, audible, tactile reset help this gun perform really well. Literally my first time ever shooting a macro in an indoor range. Woo, God, that was 11. I'll cut out that first one. It doesn't really matter because they're all in the A zone. But that felt fast. So yeah, that's pretty cool. There are a lot of accessories available for the X Macro. I would suggest just stick with an optic and a good holster. Plenty of holster options out there. I did test it out with Sig's new Foxtrot 2R light. Oh shit, this is a shitty ass O light. Ah, here it is. Yeah, Sig Foxtrot 2R. Really, really impressed with this thing. I personally do not like weapon mounted lights for legal reasons. But if you're one of those people and you like weapon mounted lights, this one is phenomenal. It's a super bright but focused beam. I think it's like 700 lumens, pretty bright. It's capable of producing up to 1.5 hours of runtime with use of a common CR123A battery. Very compact, worked very well in the X Macro. Now, I don't know if it's funny or if it's a little sad, but since I got the X Macro, I have not touched until now. Ooh. This fat sow first ex-wife of a Sig P320. After all, why would I? Makes me sick just looking at it now. I've got the X Compact here. It holds 15 rounds versus 17 rounds in the X Macro while being bigger in every dimension. And this gun is a 1/4 pound heavier than this gun, to be fair. I haven't shot these two guns side by side, but honestly, I don't need to. Why is that? Because the X Macro shoots disgustingly well. If you look back at that head-on comparison I referred you to earlier, you see that I shot the X Macro, unsurprisingly, better than its two little brothers. You've got the same flat trigger that I've got in my P320 with about the same 5-pound trigger pull weight. If you've got a larger grip circumference, chances are you're going to favor the P320 if you need something bigger to grab onto. But two-dimensionally, the guns are very similar, meaning you get a full grip on this pistol. You can mount optics on both of these pistols, which I highly recommend, and you can get great control over both pistols. I guess you could argue if you're looking for a larger pistol, like a home pistol, duty pistol, whatever, then go with the U.S. military's new sidearm, pick up a Sig P320. But if you're watching this video, you're probably not looking just for a range gun. You're probably looking for a carry pistol. And what I can say is that if you've been carrying a P320 compact or a Glock 19 comfortably, you're going to do just fine, even better with the 365 X Macro. There's also the kicker. You've got the ability to swap the fire control unit, which is the serialized piece of the gun, therefore legally the gun. You can swap this from frame to frame. So if you want, you can just buy this gun, then buy the P365 XL frame, bounce back and forth between the two since they have basically the same upper. Just drop the FCU and the slide from the X Macro onto the XL frame. you've got a smaller and lighter gun if you need deeper concealment. There's also that new Raider 365 from Flux I just reviewed. It's a small, even on-body concealable pistol caliber carbine that will work with the FCU from the X Macro. I did a full video on it a week or two ago. What I'm trying to say here is yes, I do find that the Sig P365 XL works better for me as someone who carries inside the waistband with a tucked in dress shirt or under a suit jacket in a low risk environment. If you're a bigger guy, if you've got a little bit riskier day-to-day environment, if you have the ability to conceal a slightly larger gun and it makes you feel more comfortable, it's really, really, really hard to disagree with the X Macro. The gun's light, it's compact, it shoots extremely well, it's very concealable while delivering a whopping 17+1 capacity of 9mm. I'm sorry it took me so damn long to get around to doing this review because honestly, this gun is a little bit too tall, a little bit thicker than I like for the type of carry I'm used to. But if everything that I've said sounds good to you on this video, you should have zero hesitation in checking out the X Macro. Guys, thanks as usual for watching. Stay tuned for more concealed carry videos from TFBTV. We love you. Goodbye.